using photogrammetry of myself, I put all of us inside this scape that had changed so much. And I feel really that was when I was like, okay, I want to do AR for the rest of my life. I think the ability to change something so emotional for me was just so incredibly cathartic. It was a therapy session in its own, you know. I feel like the smart glasses are now pushing us in the actual space of adoption. So that opens up a huge opportunity. And I do feel like we would have to change the way we tell stories and what is interactive and how we can make exciting things. I picked up the Snap spectacles for Headraft at the Snap Partner Summit in September 2024. I would say this has attracted so many people, clients, like not just the end customers, but just like clients who are like, okay, we want to try them. And once they try them, like, okay, what can we do about them? But I think it's a big learning for this because I feel sometimes a lot of developers or brands forget that at the end, if you don't have the user experience at the core of everything you do, you will have people who remember your experience not in a great way.
And who you just heard was maybe the best person one could ask outside of Snap to tell us more about the upcoming Snap specs and how to develop an app for that device. Our guest in this episode is Kanzul Fatima Arif, Head of Innovation at Headraft Hamburg, Snap's preferred partner agency in Germany. Kanzul tells us her very personal story in the beginning of this episode, which is a very moving and empowering story of an Afghan woman who discovers the powers of AR for her own story. She also provides a deep dive into how Headraft handled the shutdown of Spark AR and Eighth Wall, and what kind of strategy the agency now has. And she describes with great detail how the team developed Cookmate, a cooking app on the 5th generation of the Snap Spectacles and the future one, which regularly gets featured when Snap needs to show off apps in official presentations. Hello and welcome to Spatial Realities, your podcast for all professionals involved in XR, spatial computing and the metaverse. My name is Thomas Riedel, host of the podcast and tech journalist from Cologne, and as always I'm joined by my co-host Thomas Bedenk, an experienced XR expert from Berlin. Greetings.
Good morning, Thomas.
But also I'm very excited to look into next year's releases, and one of them of course is the announced Snap specs. So cannot wait to look through the Snap specs. What do you think, Thomas? Are you also very excited about that one? What can we expect?
Yeah, with everything happening around Google, Meta's SDK now released, Snap gearing up, it's really, really interesting and exciting to see what's happened 2026. And I think we're going to talk about that also with our guest a little bit later. And another cool news right now is yesterday an episode of the Handbuch Gameskultur podcast released. It's in German, so for all of our German-speaking listeners. Very cool episode about how the games industry's tech development and also UX and UI and ways of working influenced other industries. So head over there and check it out. There are 5 other really great episodes about how games influenced culture.
Yeah, great resource. Check it out. We're gonna link it, of course, in the show notes. And as a preparation for Snap's release next year, and everybody will, of course, then wear not the Meta Ray-Bans anymore, but the Snap specs. For preparation for this, it's worth diving deeper into Snap's products, into the Snappyverse. And that's why I'm very excited to welcome Kanzul Fatima Arif. She is a former filmmaker and now head of innovation at Hamburg's agency Headraft. She's also the founder of VR Present, a collective to question, reflect, and mitigate the representation of humans within the world of AI and virtual worlds, and also a Protopia connoisseurs. Welcome to the podcast, Kanzul.
Hi, Thomas and Thomas. Thank you for having me.
Of course, great having you. We met at Next Reality Festival where you showcased me Cookmate, and I was actually blown away because it's excellent. It's really nice. And this will be also one of the topics today because we have to talk about it, how you did it. I think it's one of the best apps out there for the Snap Spectacles, which is actually available. And you have to explain us, of course, how to develop it and what it can actually do. As this was your second time at the Next Reality Festival, I believe, and there are only 2 episodes of the Next Reality Festival. I am also very much interested. How did you like it in comparison to last year?
So I think, first of all, this Cookmate app has been my baby for the past year. So I'm very happy to hear your thoughts and opinions on it, like really made my heart already. For Next Reality, I think this year, again, it was a warm welcome into the community because the XR community is small, but it's full of really, really passionate people. And I think Next Reality Festival is that one time in the year where you really see all the people that you constantly see on LinkedIn or calls or something else. But what I really liked about this year was there was not just a focus on gaming and really having, because a lot of the times, like especially last year, we had a lot of apps that were focusing on gaming. But this year, I really saw there was a huge impact on how people were looking at the next 10 years in the industry and really talking about the convergence of AI and XR, which is super exciting for me because I think one completes the other in a lot of fantastic ways. And so that was one of the highlights for me. And of course, seeing the community and also winning an award for an app was great. Like Trails of Wonder won the Best Interactive Business Award. So yeah, this was a special, truly special year for us.
I was part of the jury, so I can't really tell you how you won the award or how you didn't win the award, but congrats on winning it. Were you involved in developing that application as well, Trails of Wonder?
I was part of the app in terms of concept, but also a big part in the project management of it. I oversee a lot of the 3D workflows and just making sure the teams were working well together, and yeah, a lot of fun stuff.
It's definitely a very fascinating and like bold app to release, also for Samsung. Do you, just checking in, like, do you still see traction on something like that, or was it more like a release marketing stunt?
I think it is more of of course, AR has its own challenges this year in the industry. But I do think that a standalone AR app versus something that was like integrated into something like they already use, for example, the Komoot one, the Trails. It was a really nice reflection of what is possible for a lot of brands, because a lot of brands don't take the risk with AR. Yeah. And they're always like, okay, we can do maybe an AR mirror and get all the views, interaction, maybe do a filter, but really seeing something based on utility and having gamification add to the user experience. For us, it was really great. It opened up a lot of conversations with other clients and all of that. And I would say a huge learning for us, because it sowed the seeds of how you tell stories in real world utility applications. And it also helped us with Cookmate, of course, because that is purely a utility application.
Yeah. Yeah. Before we get into Cookmate, which is of course a often explored topic, cooking in XR, and especially in augmented reality, we want to know how you got started in the XR industry, because looking at your profile, you have a track record in video and other things. How did you get into XR, and why does it excite you?
It's actually a mix of professional and personal. You know, when things just click, they click. So I started, just for background, I studied filmmaking in Pakistan. Then I went to LA to work and study films for social change at UCLA. And I think a lot of what I am, I would say that was a pivot moment in my life, because Pakistan is a very patriarchal culture. And you don't really think, at least now it's different, but 10, 15 years ago when I was, getting into my university and getting all of those things, women in leadership was still something, especially having entrepreneurial experience wasn't super great. I didn't know anybody around me. And when I went to the US, you had like everybody in LA and Silicon Valley want a startup. Like, I was like, what is going on? Like, people had some weird like they were making tights, that was a business. Somebody was making notebooks and that was a business. So it really gave me this opportunity to have a look into people start small and it's fine. And I was studying film. I came back and like I said, this fire of entrepreneurship had been lit in me, right? So I was like, okay, I'm going to go open up a company. I don't care what happens and we see how it is. So I took forms and I went to the local office and I was like, hey, I want to register a company. And they're like, yeah, okay, but do you have a husband, a father, or a brother, someone who could sign this document for you? And I'm like, wait, what? And I went back.
Where was that still?
This is in
the US?
Pakistan, Islamabad.
Pakistan.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I went back to my house and I woke up my brother and I'm like, bro, can you sign this document? He was like half asleep. He signed something. He didn't care what he signed on. I went back to them and I was like, okay, this is now Kanzul Fatima Films. It was me and my laptop. That was the entire company. And somehow the stars aligned. I ended up working with documentaries for social change. So we would work very closely with starting with the United Nations. So all 23 agencies in Pakistan somehow became my client. It was great. And I did that for 4 years. And from me and my laptop, we grew into 27 people company. And then COVID hit. And COVID, I remember it was 19th of March and I had to sit down my team and say, hey guys, I'm so sorry, but I have a month of buffer that I can pay you for. And then we have to file for insolvency and this is it. Because if you can't travel, you're not getting paid for documentaries. And I think from March until June, I was so depressed. I kept just playing Minecraft and just being on Reddit. That was like my one escape from my entire world, because, your identity becomes a founder. You are a founder. You are this person who has a company and then you don't have it anymore. Suddenly you don't know who you are. And one of the Reddit threads, I was trying to find Minecraft cheats because I was just so frustrated with this one structure I wanted to build. And I was like, I need someone to just give me like something, And they were talking about augmented reality. And that was literally the first time I heard the word AR. I knew what VR was because I'd seen something at the lab in the UCLA campus where there was a huge headset with a lot of wires. And they were debuting Hunger in LA, which was a pretty big immersive journalism piece back in the years. So AR was something I'd never heard before, even though I was using Snapchat filters, the doggy filter, the rainbow one. This was like prime COVID experience. Yeah. I had no idea that was AR. Exactly. And that Reddit thread, I would say, put me on this weird track to figure out, okay, what is AR? And at that time in 2020, there was no concept of studying AR in Pakistan. Like, no, it just did not exist. So I started looking up programs, and then I found this one program in the UK that had a pretty big focus on virtual worlds, 2 programs in the US, and one random university in Darmstadt that was debuting a program called Expanded Story World. And I was like, okay, what is this transmedial storytelling? This sounds cool. And within what they were going to debut, there was virtual worlds, augmented worlds, and I was like, okay, let's apply. Let's see what's the worst that can happen. 3-4 months later, I was sitting on a plane to figure out what's the worst that could happen. And I moved to Darmstadt, Germany in like 2021 March.
From LA.
And like from Pakistan, actually. Because I went back from, And I feel that was a way bigger move than going to the US, because US is movies. You grow up with it. I spoke the language, the music. So it's a lot easier to connect and something about LA, for example. Darmstadt, I had no idea until I landed. I was like, okay, this is way smaller than I have ever been to any place. I'd never been to a city that was that small.
Even Islamabad is way bigger.
Well, it wasn't. So since I'm a professor there right now for the bachelor, and you did the master in the kind of same area, I can tell you for me, getting there was also a similar experience, because it's not actually in Darmstadt, it's in Dieburg, right? The media campus is in Dieburg, which is a super small town. It's really a culture shock, probably coming from anywhere to there. But we do actually have a lot of international, I think like 50% of our students in those programs are foreign students. So somehow we have a reputation, or maybe networks, I don't know, how did you find that one out of everything in the world?
I loved it. I cannot thank everybody who, I would big shout out to Georg Struck. Also, he and Sven and Claudia, they were like these three people who I feel like took me by the hand and took me to, imagine you're somebody who's kind of blind and someone just suddenly gives you vision. Because that's how I feel about this program. Because suddenly there was a motion capture suit you could use. Yeah, you can use it. There's a studio, you can use it. Here's like a MetaQuest, take it home. And I just had so many, at one point when I was doing my thesis, literally my room looked like a little tiny lab. It looked like I'd just stolen all the equipment from the university and brought it to my room. And they allowed me to even take, what my master thesis was about, actually. Because at the core of who I am is someone who is obsessed with making representation fair. That is the core person that I've been for the past 15 years. It's something that wakes me up every morning and gives me joy. So of course, this was like a theme that once I had all these interesting tools, I was like, okay, what do I want to do for my master's? And I thought about some cool game and all of those things. But I was like, okay, what makes me feel it in my bones? And it was actually a memory. So when I was younger, I don't know how much you know about the geography of Pakistan, but we're right next to Afghanistan. So
a lot of mountains.
A lot of mountains. And then because of the mountains that we share with Afghanistan, there was a lot of insurgency from the Taliban as well. So when I was growing up, my mom is 11 brothers and sisters. So all of them have an average of 2.5 kids. So every summer, we are a crazy family. So every summer we would get together and go somewhere. And this means like 2 vans full of just family, going somewhere, booking up a house. And this was every year, like one of my favorite core memories, inside out style. And always we would stop by. So it was the same thing. We were not experimental. We did the same exact thing for years. We would get together in our house, then we would go forward to the mountains. And then on the way back from the mountains, there was a bazaar called Mingora Bazaar, where we used to eat these kebabs. And as a kid, I remember everything. I remember the sound, the smell, like my aunties talking to the, stall sellers and haggling with them and telling them, no, this is too expensive. And you have all the uncles on the other side just eating the kebabs and drinking chai. And as a kid, you just remember this environment, And but in 2004, there was an insurgency of the Taliban in that area, and we never went after that. That was the last time we ever went. So in 2018, I was doing a documentary series around the area, and I was with my crew, and I'm like, guys, I know the best freaking place for kebabs in the world. They've been there for 20 years. We have to go, and once we finish the shoot, we will go there. The difference was I was in a burqa this time, because in that area, it had changed that much dramatically. We get to the bazaar. It was the exact same spot, the same stall, the same kebab place, everything. I get out and I don't know what happened. I was in the car, outside the car, and within 30 seconds, I was back out. I was just like, I need to get out. Like there was a huge panic wave in my body that I don't understand. And once my driver and the DOP with me, the program manager, all of them were like, okay, guys, she's freaking out. We need to get out of here. We get out, and they were all men. I was the only woman in the car. That was the norm for a lot of my shoots in Pakistan for documentaries. And they were like, what's wrong? I was like, bro, I don't know what happened. And then I thought about it like a few minutes later, and I was like, okay, there wasn't a single woman for the whole entire mile I could see. And if you've always seen the place that way, it's whatever. But if you've seen it so different, like my mom never wore a burqa or anything. They were all around the streets in my memory. It was something so painful for me. So for my master thesis, what I did was I went back to the bazaar. I filmed, and using augmented reality, I put women in the bazaar to kind of meet what memory I had. And it had which is why I feel like Darmstadt is going to be that special place for me, because I was able to film a lot of my white friends and friends from India, from friends from Iran. All of them are on a green screen, and I created like a holographic sort of a visualization of them. Using photogrammetry of myself, I put all of us inside this scape that had changed so much.
Okay.
And I feel really that was when I was like, okay, I want to do AR for the rest of my life. I think the ability to change something so emotional for me was just so incredibly cathartic. It was a therapy session in its own, So yeah, that's how I feel about it.
That's a fascinating story, and it's also showing the huge potential of AR, of course. Eventually, this will be part of our reality and not just virtually putting the women there that they're missing in this scenario, but actually being together in this mixed kind of reality. So I noticed you mentioned that your team was basically also only men. So it was also in your position very hard, I guess, to find women that took that risk or chance or whatever you want to frame it. How was that for you, not being able to leverage that more?
I mean, what I try to do, because it's a cultural thing that I was very aware of, like what my parents allowed, having their 20-something daughter be out in the mountains, not having signals for some days, places they have never been, places they think are unsafe inherently. So I know that I will owe gratitude to them my entire life for being able to give me that chance and having that trust in me. But unfortunately, the cultural landscape doesn't allow that for most women. So what I tried always to do is get an editor who was female, get a color grader who was female, because it was something that emotionally was like, I would love, ideally, to have a 50-50% balance and not have to worry about. But I also felt safer when there was an all-male crew because I wasn't responsible for them, right? Like at the end, I just had to do baseline responsible. They're fed, they're safe, they have enough, they have a roof over their head, the things are heated. But with women, including myself, there were different kind of dangers. You're like, okay, am I really safe? What if something happens? Is it going to be like, if something happens, we have a culture of like, why were you out at all? If someone does horrible things for you, there's a victim blaming culture. So I could take that responsibility for myself, but I couldn't drag someone else with that, because these were inherently very dangerous geography that I was navigating.
Yeah, it's putting things a lot into perspective, because, I mean, we're so used to it being different, and we know that the world is like this, but we rarely get to experience it ourselves, right? So hearing all these stories from you is really fascinating, and we can tell your love for storytelling and also your emotional attachment to augmented reality. But we want to know also about how it is now at Headraft, and
how did you get there?
Yeah, and how you got to work there. Yeah.
So I think when you graduate, you have an 18-month period in Germany where you can find a job. And I started not really looking for a job initially because I was like, oh my God, it's AI time. It was 2022. It was like the peak. OpenAI had come out and Midjourney had come out that same summer, and things were going crazy. And I was really like into these collectives and stuff. And I realized I wanted to work in a place which allows and stands for the same kind of diversity in augmented reality, like really has the thought from it. And you would think it's super easy, but it was not. Like I applied and talked to so many people, and a lot of my friends were like, dude, just take the job and get a visa and get it over with. I was like, yeah, but my job's going to be 8 hours of my time daily at the minimum. I can't not just, I would like to give it a shot and wait it out for the right thing. And then there is a friend of mine, Stefan. He owns an animation studio in Stuttgart. Big shout out to him. He knew Julian, my boss right now. And I was like, yeah, I need to work at some place that is fair. It has equal, at least they try to have equal representation of women in the, management and stuff. And I don't care if it's a smaller company, but if they hold for the right values, I'm happy to give my sweat, blood, and tears to them. And he was like, okay, I think I know 2 people. Let's talk to both of them. And he messaged Julian, and he messaged another woman, Nina. She worked in documentaries, and I was trying to actively stay away from video again. So that didn't work out. And I had a talk with Julian. We had no idea what we could do for each other at this point. It was like an initiative conversation, and it went so freaking well. I asked him how many women were at Headraft, and he said, like, we're at like a 51, 52% ratio, which is great. We talked a little bit about structures, and I told him that I have a collective called We Are Present, which would take some of my time over. Sometimes I would need to get away from everything because it's a cause I love. What We Are Present basically does is it helps women get careers in AI or tech in Pakistan, or women on dependent visas in Germany. So I was at that time working with women in AI, wave makers, and all of these places. So I told him very transparently, like, hey, I'm really looking for something that can accommodate for both. But also I'm someone who will show up and challenge you on diversity and measures and everything. So if that's okay with you, we have a deal. But if not, then that is something that I would like right to not, walk away from right away. And that conversation then changed into a conversation with the team. And I absolutely freaking love the team. I still do it. I think they're the coolest people I've ever worked with. And that's how I had ended up at Headraft. And I started as this interactive producer. And a lot of my portfolio at the time was just making Snapchat lenses. And but we got luckier and luckier with conversations. And Snap was, I have to really say, they were super receptive of also tough feedback. Like there was, I think within my 3rd month at Headraft, we had this hair lens. And Headraft is, I would say, everybody 99% white and blonde. I even joked about it when I applied for a job. I was like, Jules, I don't fit. Like, I looked through the agency and all of you kind of look the same. So I was like, maybe I don't belong here. And so when they tested the lenses on lighter hair and lighter skin tone, they worked perfectly fine. And then here I was, the edge case with really black hair and slightly darker skin tone. And I was like, okay, this is just not showing up. It was doing horrible segmentation. There was a lot more feathering around the mask. The color wasn't showing up. And I think that already changed the way we worked because we ended up not just doing internal testing for that, but we also ended up sending Snap direct feedback. Hey guys, your XYZ parts on Lens Studio are just not working on my hair tag. How can we make this better? Because at that time it was optimized for black and like really black people or really white people. And I am not on either of the spectrums. I'm right smack in the middle, right? So I was really the edge case of the technology. And this is already 2023, I think October, November. And that opened up a much bigger conversation with Snap. We ended up doing this
Were
ML.
you talking with Snap in Vienna?
We are talking with them everywhere now, but initially it was the New York and the office where the engineering team sits. Mm-hmm. So we were directly talking to the engineers who work with the Lens Studio, everything development, and they were doing their LLMs at that time, the early testing. And we ended up testing the Snap ML kit for them. And I think that was where my diverse voice really outshined because we were testing it. And the team was receptive. They were like, okay, we created something Kanzul before we do anything with it. Can you test it? And we were like, okay, because, you bring in a new kind of way of thinking when you're just looking at things which are mostly looked at. People don't really think about it if it's going to work on all skin types, all of that stuff. And now every day, I think this is just part of how we work at Headraft. But yeah, that's how I ended up at Headraft. They were like my heart and soul.
Very nice. And, maybe you can tell a little bit about what Headraft is actually doing. You already said it, Snapchat filters. That's maybe what you started with. I don't know. Maybe you can talk a little bit about that because Headraft is not that big of an agency, and very specialized, I would say.
And also, I think they already exist since 10 years. So it's not like they just came out. So they had to somehow last with their business and their team for quite a while already.
Mm-hmm. It's actually a 10-year anniversary next year, so you're spot on, Thomas. But so Headraft, I feel, is a very special agency because we are, I would say, agnostic in platforms. So we work with any place which is an intersection of future technology. So whether it is Snapchat filters, augmented reality, Roblox, Fortnite, if it's like installations in person. So whatever is the user experience of the future, we're obsessed with that. So a lot of the times we talk about we are virtual brand builders, but we're also creating utility for the future, for example, with Cookmate or other works that we're into this thing. So I think Headraft is this spatial wonder sometimes that I think of. But we're just obsessed with telling good stories and being at the intersection of the future interfaces of human-computer interaction, really.
Mm-hmm. Can you make some examples what you already also worked on in the past?
Or just all of Headraft?
Just in general, what Headraft is have been doing, but also what you did.
Yes, so Headraft has been doing a lot of stuff. So I think they started with VFX and specialized. So my boss is really, really great with VFX, and he is great with video editing and all of those stuff. So that was his background. And over the years, I think they brought that nuance of looking at special effects to augmented reality. A big body of work has been work with Snapchat. Like we've done over 450 Snapchat filters in the past 5 since 2019. We are Snap's preferred partners in Germany. We worked closely with Meta, so we worked a lot with Instagram filters before Spark AI was murdered and buried, but so that was a huge part. So a lot of the facial filters, we are still 1%, like top 1% TikTok creators in Germany. So you can say that those touch points on social platforms is there. Then we create worlds in Roblox. So we work with Chronahit. We worked with Bauti Book. Right now we have this build Fortress for the Countess right now going on. It's going pretty strong. And then we work also with glasses, AR glasses. So we are working, for example, with spectacles, but we're also trying to always figure out what's happening in the Chinese market and testing out different interfaces and seeing where that's going to be. Then we have a whole part of games and applications. So we did some AR applications, but also just plain gaming applications for Brulux and some very serious sales tools for companies where you can visualize their machinery or stuff like that. So I feel like it's so hard to really put all the things that we've done because it's such a big portfolio of work and different touch points, but a lot of it digital, everything digital, human, real world, all of that.
Sounds like you're 100 people.
I feel that way sometimes too, but no. I mean, we have a dynamic team, right? Like we are 22 people, and by the project, we also have a 400 people freelance network, which we tap into depending on the project. So it could be at one given time, because of a project, we are 100 people, because that's just how we expand. So yeah.
Do you have a feeling for how important the lenses business is for you? Is it like 50%, 80% of your business or less, or how would you say?
I think it's still dynamic. Like I can't say the last 2 years, maybe completely different numbers. Last year, completely numbers. This year, because companies were a lot more hesitant generally in putting marketing budgets. So the amount of lenses we produced actually went up. Rather than doing like big chunks of projects, we ended up doing a lot of these smaller activations for a lot of clients because it felt a bit more tangible to them, because spending 1 million on a digital big activation versus spending 100K on a Snapchat lens and getting the same amount of impressions for some people makes a lot more sense. But yeah.
So you're head of innovation. Before we come to the actual app, which is also very exciting, how do you balance these things, right? So you have Eighth Wall that was just shut down. You have Spark that was shut down. On the same time, you're recommending these technologies to your clients, right? You, on the one hand, you have very performance based metrics. On the other hand, it's an experiential medium. Like, how do you handle that with your clients? And also, how do you push this forward? Because you're, as head of innovation, like, what's next in this field?
I think what I love about Headraft or being in the XR agency is because your head is already 3 years ahead. Just to survive this landscape, you need to be in at least a 2 to 3 year head start. So I feel like Spark AR was the first surprise that we had. Now we plan with everything with a backup. For example, when 8th Wall went down, it wasn't a big conversation for us. It was like, okay, Zapper, Snap Camera are 2 direct options we can already recommend. And this is how the workflow is going to look like for X, Y, and Z clients. And for clients, for example, the problem is when a client hears that they spent 150K on something and now it's closed, that's a big stress for them. So we reached out to our clients who had done stuff on Eighth Wall in the past, and we're like, okay, this is how we can still keep the project alive on XYZ platforms. Because to be fair, the great thing about building with XR is a lot of these platforms are kind of the same. They work in very similar ways. Like a lot of our work was based on Play Canvas anyway with WebAR. So, you can switch one for the other. So I think after SparkAR, our biggest learning was to be always prepared for bad news with a press release in your email address, and just respond really fast. And I would say with XR, with the past year, our obsession has been looking at the intersection of AI and XR at Headraft. So we are already optimizing for workflows that I feel would be the ones to come in the next 2-3 years, where really AI will need more information than just putting data sets in there. And XR is that one place where the world is the information. Like, you can look around and every interaction is going to feed AI in a different way. So the team is already working on those things. And with our clients, because it's a trust-based relationship, we have partnerships which have been going on for 5 to 6 years already. They also have that trust in us. So for us, I feel like we're in this special position where, because our key partners are also innovation obsessed, and they also understand that the technology dies before it can come, something else replaces it, and it's fine. Like for example, with Samsung, I mean, they know they've killed projects themselves, so they know something better is going to be out there, So I feel, at least from our perspective, it is a lot of stress. I wouldn't say it's super easy and then everything is super, clean, but having plan A, B, and C, like every 6 months, is super great as a strategy that we have internally.
So I take it you go for the cutting edge stuff as much as you can, but try to have a backup solution. So what do you think about the smart glasses? Like, will this be something where agencies can have business? I mean, we see now the SDK from Meta actually being public, but it's still a tricky area to go forward with at the moment, right? How do you see that?
Yeah, and the API is not like you can show some fancy stuff. It's just a communication between an app on your smartphone and the glasses.
I think, so here's where it could be a debate. You could completely agree with me or completely disagree with me, but I feel in a good way, so BR and AR have been very game-centered experiences. We've been looking at it for games and entertainment and all. I feel like the smart glasses are now pushing us in the actual space of adoption. Like one of the biggest problems goes away is form factor with smart glasses, right? It is really something you can put on and then you completely forget that you have something on. You're not tuned into a place. It's just part of your everyday. So that opens up a huge opportunity. And I do feel like we would have to change the way we tell stories and what is interactive and how we can make exciting things. Like I was last weekend trying to just see what 3D, binaural audio is, what's going on in that space, because I feel like that's going to become like a bigger part of the storytelling. We're going to get less and less on dragons flying in front of you in space and all of those things, but more about like really real life add-ons, which slowly become visual, because we tried with creating spaces which are completely boxed in for people. And there's definitely a dedicated VR user, but for the average user, which mass adoption needs to happen, smart glasses for me offer that kind of opportunity where like it is going to challenge the teams that have been building with AR and VR, because it's a different way of telling stories. But it does increase a lot more adoptability for the everyday user, because I can imagine my dad, who's 65, putting on a smart glass before he can put on a VR headset any day. Like really, I tried to get him to use the Snap spectacles, for example, without saying anything. Like I gave him zero tutorial. Because, baseline user test, like a guy in Pakistan who doesn't use a lot of this technology, he's my perfect user. And it was so crazy how fast he got it, because it is not, and if he would keep asking me things and I was like, you will figure it out, you can try it, And for me, that's like the Snap spectacles is still in like a bigger form factor, but I imagine it in 5 years or 4 years where it's gotten to a point where it's in the normal spectacles, like everyday wear. That's where I would feel should go, and that's what excites me about it. And yeah, I hope that answered the question.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, I had a talk about that at the Next Reality Festival, and no idea if you saw it, but it was
Yes.
actually about that. I still think that, my opinion with adoptability is it will be even more than the virtual reality glasses. But there is a reason why a lot of people who actually need glasses don't wear glasses. And we cannot just ignore that. You know, like even if they have Bluetooth speakers built in and you get a lot of additional information, which are great, this will make a couple of people wear them who wouldn't otherwise wear glasses. But I think we need to say goodbye to the general idea of XR being the mainstream a smartphone is. I think this will never happen. We can just say goodbye to that because putting things in your face is just a lot to ask for. It's really a lot to ask for. Putting stuff in your ear, agree, there's more people, or on your wrist. But even that, not everybody has a smartwatch. So yeah, I think it will still be a challenge when the best smart glasses ever will be released next year from Snap. Let's see, or the AR glasses.
I think it's still a future that I think will come. It's just quite a bit further out than a lot of people assume. Just like Thomas said, you have the people that are wearing glasses, but in reality, they often have 2 or 3 different glasses, right? For reading, for driving the car, for actually walking around the environment. You would have to replace all of them with AR glasses, right? And then there's the group that doesn't wear glasses. You have to have a really good experience. And it has to be super comfortable for them to be willing to put AR glasses on. So in both target groups, basically, in both fractions, you're struggling somewhat. So I think it's great that we see this relative growth at the moment. I'm still a little bit hesitant that like in 2-3 years, everyone will wear those, right? So that's a nice way of looking at it. But how do you see traction with the customers? Do you have customers come in and say, we want to do something with smart glasses like it used to be, you know, we want to do something with VR, we want to do something with Apple Vision Pro. Do you have do you feel like there's a lot of demand out there?
I would say like in the past year. So I picked up the Snap spectacles for Headraft at the Snap Partner Summit in September 2024. I would say this has attracted so many people, clients, like not just the end customers, but just like clients who are like, okay, we want to try them. And once they try them, like, okay, what can we do about them? Right now, the problem is because they're not a commercially available product, you can't do commercial experiences on them. But they do see like, for example, doing really big multi-player activations in a space, creating something of that sort is something that tangibly they can understand very quickly. Because to be honest, it's again an attention economy, right? If you can explore a different experience and a way of experiencing with the spatial world and with people each other together, people can be interested. And brands are seeing that sort of intent in there. Brands want to be looking like they're at the cutting edge of technology, and this is something that they want to experience. Because I remember this really funny workshop we did with one of our clients who has never really done anything with the glasses. And he wrote them and he was like, yeah, but this is like magic. And I was like, yeah, exactly. This is like magic. This is how I feel about the technology as well. So I do think that there is a definite increase in interest because of all the activations around glasses this year from Meta, from Snap, from like the rumors of Google entering the space of like Android XR, and then Samsung also with the Project Mohan, and all of these really big conversations. For example, I was at the AWE, and a lot of the conversations you can tell from people who are in the community in how far the robotics are going and all of those things. So there is an interest of people looking at the smart glasses as next generation technology and like what people are going to be looking at. So yeah, I do think that in the next year, we would be doing some really cool projects with some clients as soon as they're commercially available products out there. We still have to see how this Meta SDK changes things, if there's anybody here. But for me, the biggest difference is because now I've worked in the US in Asia, in Germany. Adoptability and proactivity in the US works very differently than in Germany. For Germans, a lot of the times things have to already have a success story and then they get behind it. So I'm very, very confident, and I don't say this with like, it's not a marketing fluff. I really think if we can create one good experience next year, easy peasy. There's going to be a bunch of brands who fall on the bandwagon. But the first person, like the first brand, needs to take that initiative here in Germany. In the US, I already know there's Figma working with Snap Spectacles. There's, because they came up with this Soundbase partnership. So they have a cloud computing situation going on, which has opened up the possibility of what databases can do, how big the experiences can be, and how they're using the space on the glasses themselves. So there's already traction going on, and I think we're in for a pretty big release from them next year with already productivity and all of these things in there. So yeah, that is what I think is going to happen with brands.
Perfect leeway into your project, I think, with spectacles. Now let's talk about the cooking, right? So this, it has to be clear, this was a project financed by yourself or by Spectacles or by a client? I mean, we've seen things like that for Vodafone in the past for other glasses. Tell us a little bit about how the project was structured and why you did it.
Okay, so it's funny because Snap had this thing called Snap Lens Fund last year. They announced it. There was no limit on how big or small this had to be. You know, it was just like, it was a fund. You can apply for it. If you have an idea that's good enough, it makes financial sense, they could think about it. And we have a very special partnership with Snap. We like this, I completely do not take it for granted. And I appreciate it so much that I can email someone and go like, hey, we have this idea. Can you help us figure it out, you know? So we had a internal ideation session because we did pick up the glasses. We were the first people to pick up the glasses, right? So I already had them in my hand on the 18th of September evening, and they were revealed on the 17th of September. So this is insanely great. Like, we were 80 people in the world at that time who had them in our hands. So the team already was working on ideas before, because we, not just on Snap Spectacles, but we have been talking about smart glasses internally 2 years ago. Or what would be possible, like if we were to have like a mediocre hardware system, what are the ideas that you can have? So we had a bunch of ideas. We had a panic room. We had a drone game that you could fly a drone through like these big ships and become like this miniature things and all of that stuff. But cooking was one thing that kept coming up in these ideations, because cooking is very human. It is something all of us do, or the ones who don't do need to do. It's like one of those things, you know, we had people who were like, I don't know how to cook. I always need to use a YouTube video, or I need to use a cookbook. And we had a lot of the people in the office who use cookbooks, including myself. Like sometimes I just love the silence of cooking in the kitchen with like a book on the side, and I don't like using my hands for the phone. It keeps turning off. Something else is happening. And I think Christian, our head of technology, was someone who was like, really, I really want to do a cooking app because it's so tangible. It's so utility first. And I think that was different because a lot of the people who were applying for the fund at that time were games. If you go through the Snap Spectacles store, even now, it's games. And then you suddenly have Cookmate in the middle of it. So that's how we did. We made a proposal. We blanched out ideas. And also, a year and a half ago, the Snap OS looked very different. What it was capable of was very different. So we were already making something with assumptions and feature requests. So like our proposal had like, hey, Snap team, we want this, and this by 6 months. If that's possible, then we can do this, you know. So the proposal makes no sense. It's a research and development proposal. So there are things that would have worked out. I mean, I can look back now and go like, oh my God, why did we even think this was a great idea? It doesn't work in AR. And that's how it happened. So we pitched to them. They said, okay, we got an approval on costs. And yeah, they funded it and we started building it. And I would say we had to throw everything we knew about designing for AR and VR out the window and start from scratch. Like, I am not kidding. The colors that didn't work, the amount of pixel binning that was happening and driving me crazy every day. It was really like an experience.
What is pixel pinning?
So binning.
Binning.
So it starts to like have this weird sort of jittering in the visual, in the real face.
Okay. Can you tell
It's
something
because
about...
of the color sequential display.
Okay, I see. So can you tell something about how much you received over the Spectacles Lens Fund?
That is not something I can publicly talk about, but it was a good amount. It was great.
I mean, the app looks like you got a huge amount of money. So no idea if that's actually true, but it looks really good. So how did you approach the design? Because it's a special form factor, right? You look through the lenses. It's not horizontal. It's vertical, what you see. So you have to actually design an app which fits there, which works there, and is always there without being too much in the way when you cook. So that's actually a challenge. So maybe you can tell a little bit about that approach, and also how many people worked on that at Headraft.
So I love that we're talking about this, because I think this is one thing that drove us the most nuts, because it's a non-linear way of producing something. Usually you design, you create the wireframes, and then that is coming alive into the software. In Spectacles, no. You design, you think of an idea, you test it in the Spectacles, and then you really design it. So we were really testing, like Marcel was our key designer on this, working very closely with Jan Lucas, who is our XR developer. And at some point, I feel like they morphed into one brain, and that's why this worked, because it was literally changing a headline, making it less brighter, moving it to the left, moving it to the right, placing things in the real world, because font works so differently with the Spectacles than it does with anything else. Like, we've worked with mixed reality a lot. Like, for example, working with Quest 3, Apple Vision Pro, there is this control you have in these environments when the things are coming from a camera feed. You can dim them, you can do that, but you can't do that to real life. If somebody's standing in front of a bad lighting condition, you just have to mimic that. So we did like a very small round of me, Jan Lucas, and Marcel testing almost every day with everything we did, which is why the initial part was really, really like heavy. And then we would send those updates to the Snap team in LA and New York, who would then run it through things. And what was fun here was they were also running it through for future updates that we didn't have access to yet, and giving us, hey, clean this in the code, change this way, or put it in this way, or anchor it in these ways, you know.
What was that concrete? Like what was the problem there, or what had the team to change at Snap?
So, for example, we had this issue with timers. So we wanted to create these. So right now in the app, you can create these timers and you can put them anywhere you want. And at some point, our spatial anchors were just not working as well. Like, the world anchoring was not working as well. Then Snap updated the spatial anchors and they became super great. Like, they would not budge. Like, if my pasta was cooking and I put a 13-minute timer on it and I went away, I came back and it was like the timer was running normally. It was exactly where I placed it. But before that, we had like some sort of loss of space. And it was only happening with the timers. If you use like an asset or something else that was bigger, it was not a problem. But like, because these are really thin, small looking things, we were having these issues. So a lot of these, like, there were so many of these small iterations that we did with the Snap team together. So, and the same thing happened with like testing the first build, for example. So we put in the design, we created it, and we had the issue with legibility. Like, we were like, okay, shit, nobody can really read it. You put it on and everybody's moving naturally towards the thing. It's not big enough. Back to the drawing board. Then playing with the fonts and the colors. And what's special about Cookmate is we wanted to keep it something in the design. It is a scalable solution. So, for example, a brand like Lieferando wants to do a takeover of Cookmate. We should be able to put all the colors of Lieferando and their brand elements within the interface. So it is designed with that thought in mind. And I think that was also the added challenge per se, because you can't do very specialized things because you want to play in the space of neutrality like Apple does in a lot of places. And you want to be legible, you want to be fun, you want to make it look fresh, but also the Snap user right now is a very young person, so you can't make the app look like someone designed it for everybody who was 50 and above. So we had a lot of these very human challenges in designing for Cookmate.
Yeah, looks very clean, but also playable, if that's actually a word in English.
Yes.
Nice typo, which looks modern and pixely, and you can see that it went through a process, and what's left is actually working. So
I'm actually a little bit surprised how small some of the font is. So you still didn't have. I mean, it's a trade-off, right? The field of view versus font size and how much you can display and all that. It like I said, I'm a little bit surprised how small the font, at least comparing from the video, I didn't actually try it, is still legible. And
there's a trick to it, right? That's because you put a color behind the font, and the font color and the background color always has to be in a certain kind of balance so that you can actually read it, right? I guess that's what you tested there.
Yes, we also the thing with, if you try it in real life, Thomas, it's a bit different because Snap Spectacles also has a full view recorder, which looks a little bit, it puts all the assets a little bit further than they are when you actually have the glasses on. So, and the other thing what we did was, so right now the font is the average of everybody who tried that comfortable position, but because we have the element of just being able to put it and drag it to yourself, so you can bring it a lot closer to yourself like that. So there is a level of customization that you can just naturally do.
Okay. Yeah, to me it looked very, very thin, white on nothing else. So I wouldn't have thought that's the ideal way. But I mean, you always have to experiment. That's what you describe, right? When we did for the HoloLens 2, for the HoloLens, you have to be at the state where we are with augmented reality. You have to be device specific, use case specific, right? It's not like one thing to rule them all. So it's a nice experience. How important do you feel like, especially for these cases where no one has the glasses, basically, right? How important is it to showcase these things, like with videos, marketing material, like good trailers and stuff like that? How much of your job is that to make it look nice, even for the people who don't have access to it?
So the past year, I think it was a big year of activations for us. So like we debuted Cookmate at the AWE 2025 in Long Beach, California, which was a bang. You go out with a pretty big bang, because if you're at the AWE with the Snap booth, it's a big conversation opener. So we had a lot of traction from there. We had some marketing materials. We made it to Snap's global press release of the top 5 experiences on spectacles. We were part of their investor reports for Q1, Q2, and Q3, which is great. Q2 and Q3, I think these two, because Cookmate was debuted in June. So then we did activation at the KI Big Bang Festival in Berlin, where we had a Cookmate booth. People could come, they could scan ingredients in real life, and somebody ate a banana from our booth, so we had a laugh about that.
Nice.
And so
excuse me, you're eating our equipment.
That was funny. I mean, yes. I mean, I hope they're not watching this. If they are, it was all good. We had a good laugh. But yeah, so we did that. Then I've been invited personally to like a lot of places, like at agencies. We did also an innovate. So there was L'Oreal Innovation Day. We went to the L'Oreal headquarters with Snap, and we debuted the spectacles and Cookmate. So I would say we've had already, from just the invites I've gotten this year for Headraft, it means we're doing something right with our press. And there was this guy I met at Next Reality, and I said, "Hi, I'm Kanzul." He's like, "Oh yeah, you're the girl with the spectacles." And I'm like, "Yeah, I'm the girl with the spectacles." So I've lived this identity for the past year, and I think that's super important, because you need enough people to be convinced it works so that they can invest and then be convinced for whatever users and brands out there that they have. Where I feel Apple Vision Pro kind of fell really flat, it was really uphyped. So also in the XR community and stuff. But then at the core of it, building experiences on it are so expensive, really, to make something phenomenal on it and really out of the box costs us a lot more, because the 3D capabilities it has and all of those things are things that smaller companies will struggle unless they're funded by a big client. But with spectacles, you can really do cool stuff with not a lot of money, honestly speaking. Like, you can bring your design ethos and do a panic room. I saw some really cool Indian developers who don't have funding, but they've made some really, really fun things on the Snap spectacles. So I think for us, it's just one of those things that we really focus on what kind of story or what kind of utility we want to make at Headraft. And then we just focus on building it. Like, there are things we also work which are like, which will not get the same amount of money as Cookmate does, but it still excites us.
Yeah. Those glasses, by the way, usually get designed for men like us, like Thomas's, you know, like 1.83 meters high, white skin, our eye distances. Did you had any influence towards Snap telling them, guys, actually, for me as a woman, that's actually too big. We need different form factors. Could you talk to them about that?
Thomas, I'm actually 182. You were 1 centimeter off.
Oh my God. But you have more hair, so you won.
And I'm shrinking because I'm getting old. So yeah.
No.
But back to the question.
I mean, I'm 159 or 158. So this is the worst competition to have in this room. But yeah, so we did actually, I think just how the Snap Spectacles building team was, you're on a Slack message, right? You have engineers, you have product builders, you have producers, everybody on that thread. We were talking about ears because my ears are just not, they're not made for it. And they gave me these dividers that go over, and now the problem is fixed. So it's not like they
3D printed, which is very cool. Yeah.
And they just have them. They're super tiny. It's insane how something so small just fixes the issue, It gives you that space that you need, and it's no longer like a problem, because my head is just not big enough for a lot of the times, or like some people's head is just really small or something of that sort. But I think for a prototype, it still was something that they did take into account, because they had a very quickly solutions to it. So they've had feedback on that. They've had feedback on hand tracking and working on different color tones. All of that stuff was something that I have seen already work into the program. It is something that they think with, they test with. They came up with this translation app. I don't know if you've seen the video. I can also send it to you if you have, right? That's so many different kind of people. It's so great. It works really well. It has issues with all translating. The same problem my AirPods do. But most of it works really well. And because the teams at Snap themselves are super diverse. And I can say that with full confidence, because a lot of other companies right now don't look the same as they do. And especially the rooms they're building in, like the engineering team, the product team, most of them are pretty, I would say, fair in terms of representation of both women and men, but also different ethnicities into the room.
So again, a question about something you might or might not answer. So, on the one hand, a cooking app is something very common for for classes like this. On the other hand, you got to do it, and you got to do a good version. So are you going to be featured for the full release of the classes?
So we are working on making sure that Cookmate is updated and really good. So we're in the running. You have to understand, we are competing really hard. Yes, Cookmate is something that I think even Snap does not support it anymore financially, because that was the part. But we as Headraft want to continue making it better, because with every update, there are things that we can do, things that are better. Like right now, we already added a inbuilt AI assistant, which was not really there at the AWE release that we had.
Oh, cool.
So we gave 5 personalities to the AI, and it's part of it. So what we are trying to do is we're trying to make it ready and then compete with it to be making sure that there's a German great experience that is part of a global release like that, because I can tell you that there's a lot of competition, especially a lot of bigger American agencies, they have a lot more money than us, any given day. And they have funding, they have responses and all of that. And for the size of Headraft, the fact that we're in the running for this competition makes me so happy. So fingers crossed.
So you're not actually working on another app for the Snap specs, but you're concentrating completely on Cookmate.
No. So we have like a division in terms of we have an ideation session every couple of months on what we can do. So we are working on, for example, we're thinking of right now we're in this ideation place where we're trying to do a spatial thinking app because I think our IP is going to become more and more utility on the smart glasses and less games because we do games on other platforms. We have a lot of that gamification centered IP also going on. But the team that worked on Cookmate is super obsessed with the utility, with productivity and all of those things. So we are constantly testing out how would thinking be in XR? What can we do with these things? How do we make teams more efficient with using a multiplayer experience, which is so seamless with something like the spectacles?
Yeah.
So there is that part, but then there is a constant update to Cookmate also happening simultaneously.
So you just said we have IP in this area. So are you talking about your own IP in terms of this is like we're looking at this as a product company? Because that's something tricky for agencies to get into, right? Because then you suddenly have to think about who is my audience, how am I selling this product, how much can I put into it, or is it mostly a marketing vehicle for you? Because that would make a lot of sense in this context, right? You making something world-leading, outstanding for marketing more than reaching an audience, or is it that you're internally open to do something like this as a product? Because I mean that kind of requires a different kind of strategy.
And it would be a great product, but where's the business model?
Yeah.
So for us at the moment, it's a marketing vehicle for sure, but it's not like we haven't thought about it becoming a product because like I said, we designed with the idea of making it something that brands can buy a subscription for and then take over. For example, imagine Uber Eats. You can directly just do something, order or like Flink does something with us or HelloFresh does something with us, You can order the entire ingredient list that you're missing and have those kind of AI small APIs attached to Cookmate and work. And we can imagine it turning into a full-on product. But for now, I feel like given where the smart glasses in terms of business directly are, we would keep it as a marketing vehicle with the option to see how the market expands in the next couple of years.
I did notice how some of the interface already looks Uber Eats green. So that was probably left over from a pitch or something. Anyway, Thomas, what questions do we still have? We've had so many interesting stories from you. Fatima, you're a really great podcast guest because you're so talkative and very much illustrating the things you're saying. So it's very great to have you.
I can just tell also a small story. When the first time I put on a real augmented reality glasses was from Reedel.
Oh wow!
A very bad version of it, and there I had some cooking assistance in the style of Stefan Hensler, a German cook, and it was actually the worst thing I've ever tried in my whole life. And then trying your app was actually so refreshing. It was working so well. And what we didn't talk about is that you can actually put a step in your cooking schedule and pull it out of the app and put it somewhere else, close to your, cutting board or to the pot you're cooking or something. The little details that were really well thought through. And I think if this will not become a product on the new Snap specs, I would be wondering what's going wrong here. But also I was wondering about if you actually plan to put it on other glasses, because there will be more augmented reality glasses in the future, for example, Android XR. And I'm not a technician, so I'm not sure how easy it actually is to put something which you have developed for the Snap specs to, for example, the new Android XR glasses, which will surely come. And so do you think about that too? Do you prepare for that? Did you already, because Android XR is already there, so you could actually start developing it. Are you working on that too?
So we already tested on Android for phone. just to see how, like as part of learning of like what parts can actually go to it and what not. And the same thing, we want to test it on all the glasses, everything that can happen, because like I said, if it turns into a real product, it is a platform agnostic product at the end. It just needs the intersection of AR and hand gestures, and it's really cool glasses that can pull it off. So we are always looking at this becoming like a base for us, and then try to expand it to other glasses. We have tested on, I think we did a very low poly Meta Quest test. And I think it's really hard to go back from the form factor. It's insane how it just doesn't do it, So we are really in that place where for us, it will be pretty open. We see what comes in the next year, and we see how much of it we can expand and go forward with. But yeah, it's been really, I'm so happy to hear you say that you enjoyed it. And these are like these really small details, like the ability to pull out a step and putting it anywhere in your environment. Because like I said, I put a timer on this pasta because that's what I overcook every freaking time. And every time I cook with the spectacles, I don't overcook the pasta because it's really doing its thing in the corner. It's out of my field of view unless I want to see it, So you can really crowd your field of view as much as you want, or you can clean it out as much as you want. So it's like that really custom sort of user journey that I love and enjoy so much.
Yeah. I just wanted to give a little note on the Vodafone thing that you mentioned, Thomas, because you smashed it so bad. I think it was called Giga AR. And
did you develop it, your agency, back then? Or?
No, I didn't develop it, but I knew some of the people. I think ZDF was involved in Vodafone's innovation department. You have to look a little bit at the context, and they actually had quite a good marketing impact with this. So I'm convinced this app was more created for the video and the celebrity effect than for the usability necessarily of the one using it. So in that sense, it was probably pretty successful as a case, even though it might have not had the best AR design. So you always have to look at a little bit in the context of, also this is like 4 years ago, what are the capabilities of the devices? I think they wanted to use volumetric scanning because they had Henslow on board and stuff like that. So suddenly you're in a lot of constraints and you have to make it work somehow. So I would look at it more as a marketing piece than a user-ready software. In that sense, it probably made more sense than you trying it.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I was trying it as a user, and it was like, oh my God, what am I doing here? Because, for example, the OS was crashing all the time. If I pinned something somewhere, it was gone after a while. Like all the problems you had also working with Kanzul, but Snap actually solved the problems. So, yeah, but it was 4 years ago, so I'm very happy that also Xreal delivered different experiences. So, yeah, we moved forward in the economy. So everything is good.
But I think it's a big learning for this, because I feel sometimes a lot of developers or brands forget that at the end, if you don't have the user experience at the core of everything you do, you will have people who remember your experience not in a great way. Because I have used apps which I remember because they frustrated me so much. Like there was a Meta Horizon world I got stuck in. I couldn't get out of it. And I was like, this is just driving me nuts, And they had the best trailer. Like if I look at the trailer, I'd be like, wow, because something pulled me to it. Yeah. So I think it is so important to at least have some sort of baseline great user experience, because the marketing is for a different group of people, but at the core of it, if your user is not getting out of your experience with a good feeling, then this happens 4 years later,
And that's certainly something you can criticize very much about this case, because they did actually want to sell those glasses. You could buy those glasses in the store, and the marketing looks so awesome. And then you buy the glasses and you're like, okay, there's no app. So what do I do with it? So yes, I totally agree with this. So again, depends on the context of is this just Vodafone looking into the future, or Vodafone trying to upsell their maybe not quite ready for the market classes and apps. There's definitely an argument about that.
All right, so all our questions on our sheet are checked, so we can close the startup, I guess, Thomas. We will be very happy to see you, Kanzul, again at Next Reality Festival next year. And also, of course, pushing all the thumbs that you will be featured at the launch of the Snap specs, whenever that will happen. Pushing all the thumbs. Thank you very much for joining this podcast. It was really nice. Thank you very much.
This was great. Like, really, I had a lot of fun. So thank you so much for having me. And
Great.
I just yapped away. So I hope it's not a lot of editing for you, Thomas.
No, this is
we're not done yet. Thomas needs to read the sentence.
I need to say the outro. But that's why we said it's really great to have guests like you that like to talk. So that was episode 120 of Spatial Realities.
If you enjoyed this podcast, we'd really appreciate if you recommended it to others. Feel free to share the episode on social media and send them to colleagues and friends. And leave us a 5-star rating on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. Also, a quick reminder about our Discord server. You can find a link to it in the show notes or at spatialrealities.de. My name is Thomas Bedenk. I'm Thomas Riedel. Thanks for tuning in and see you next time. See you. Bye.
Bye-bye.